Good afternoon, everybody. I am Bert Eyler. I'm here with my co-host, Jim Fotis, and this is PODC the Hill Report. Good afternoon, Jim. How are you doing today, buddy?
Doing well, Bert. I feel very good about what we're going to discuss. You're looking very good today.
Thank
Very,
you. Thank you very much.
you look very summery. You look looking great.
Yeah, I'm always this cute. All right. So, as everybody knows, Jim, Congress is in recess right now for August, so there's not too much going on. So, I thought we could talk a little bit about some of our bills that we're championing up on the Hill and move forward with that. What do you think about that for today?
I think it's good. We could go in depth into at least one bill today that I feel is very important, and you could certainly bring us up to date on what's happening with it. The Back to Blue Act of 2025. It hasn't moved forward, but I feel it's a very important piece of legislation, and probably a lot of people don't know about it, certainly police officers and other people that would be affected by it.
Yes, Jim. This bill is HR 4310, and on the Senate side, it's S 3366. What this bill is doing is protecting law enforcement that have been attacked or basically assaulted or murdered by the hands of a suspect. Now, this just doesn't include law enforcement. It includes fire and rescue, volunteer fire and rescue, judges, prosecutors, court security, pretrial service officers, court reporters, corrections, probation, and parole officers. So it's the whole gamut. It also includes National Guard. And basically, how this ends up working is if the department, state or local, is getting federally funded by the federal government, they could fall under this law. Now, there's two ways for it. One, if the state doesn't have jurisdiction, the federal government can charge under this, or if the state requests the federal government to take jurisdiction. Those are the two ways that the federal government can get involved. And some of the things dealing with it is the sentencing. So if a simple assault is a minimum of 2 years up to 10 years, bodily injury is from 5 years, minimum of 5 years to 20 years. Seriously bodily injury is 10 years and all the way up to life. And then deadly or dangerous weapon involved, you're looking at 20 years to life, if not the death penalty, if the officer or any of the judicial individuals that we mentioned were killed. And I think that's really, really a big deterrent. I think this needs to get passed. And moving forward, we're going to keep fighting for it. And I think this will be a really big bill. There are a couple other segments that we are going to be talking about here shortly, and I think everybody will get a bigger picture on why this bill is so important.
It is. It's very important. And I think the biggest caveat in this bill is that you have to be getting some kind of federal grant to come under it, or you have to have the AG or ask the AG to look at what's happened, and he can say, okay, you fall under the Back to Blue Act, or have if you have the grant, you just fall naturally under it. Correct, Bert?
Correct. Yeah, that is what it's about. So this is basically broken down. This bill is broken down into several segments. So this is the first half on what it can do for officers.
Yeah, this is such a massive piece of legislation. It's no wonder they're having problems getting into it and getting it passed. maybe you could tell us about the next part about the criminals if they try to avoid prosecution or flee prosecution, how the penalties evolve from there.
Yeah, the flight to avoid prosecution for killing law enforcement officials. So this is another segment of the law or of this bill, and basically what it's saying is if you're fleeing the country or fleeing the state to get away from prosecution, it's a minimum of 10 years in prison along with a fine. So it can go 10 years and up that you can spend in jail just on this piece of legislation. So on top of, what we talked about earlier, this is a separate part that you can be charged separately with after the incident because you fled. So now it's a second charge.
And it's minimal evasion. It could be you're running from them and trying to hide from law enforcement, or you're actually fleeing the country, right? And then it even goes up. So it's definitely something that would add to the crime.
Correct. Yes, it's another charge. So that's really good. This is a really good pro law enforcement bill. And now we're going to get into the the next section of this bill.
Yeah. And the next section basically interprets where it gives a much more liberal perspective as to where and who involved in law enforcement can carry their firearms. And it gives a broad base of law enforcement, both active and retired personnel, who can carry their firearms and where they can carry. And the newest part of this legislation that I find is that law enforcement can carry their firearms anywhere they feel threatened, and they should be basically allowed to use it in any threatened situation or on themselves or anyone in the vicinity. And I thought that was a really good piece of legislation because we know how many times police officers are charged for using their weapons.
Yeah, correct. In this section, it's stated carrying of concealed firearms by qualified law enforcement officers in a school zone. So, it's a very good piece of legislation. It kind of is along the side of the other bill, the Leo's Reform Act, allowing retired officers that are certified to carry in school zones. So that is another big piece of this legislation that's added in here, dealing with the where law enforcement can carry. And it's also further amendment. It also is dealing with allowing possession of firearm and ammunition in facilities security level of 1 to 2 for citizen public access. So if you have access to it and it's a government building that's level 1 or 2, this bill would allow would allow law enforcement to carry in those buildings. We'll have to do some more research and come back. I'm not sure what their definition of level 1 or level 2 is. So we'll have to come back and maybe do an amendment to that on what those levels are. I
Right.
take that back.
And Bert, up until now, if this legislation passes, how many school shootings, and we just had a shooting at the University of Virginia the other day, and right now you cannot carry on any government funded campuses. They have up signs, you're not allowed to carry in schools. I believe that active and retired law enforcement should be able to carry anywhere to not only protect themselves but to also protect the citizens around them, especially in incidents like this. And then again, the next part of this particular part of this act is to defend retired law enforcement for acts that they or arrest that they had while they were on duty that may come up in the future when whoever they arrested may be let out and come back after them or their families. Can you explain that a little better, Bert?
Yeah, so it's basically if somebody in your career and you retire and somebody that gets out of prison or you that maybe has seen you in the street, you're just shopping and they come and assault you, whether they violently assault you, possibly shoot, stab, even maybe kill you. This law would allow them to be prosecuted under it. And it's similar to the bill we just helped get passed, the Chief Herbert Profit Act, because that bill was dealing with the Leo's death benefits, to where if somebody who's been retired and has been assaulted or killed because of what they did while they were active duty, they're covered under the Leo's death benefits. So now what this is saying is you can be criminally charged as assaulting law enforcement. So that's a really big segment. And
that is a very big segment and very important, because we've seen retired chiefs of police and retired police officers killed and assaulted years after they made these arrests, and very unexpected. Somebody that you may have arrested 20 or 30 years ago could come up, kill you, and assault you. You may not even ever recognize them or remember the arrest.
Okay, Jim, there is one more section I'd like to talk about, and that is a grant for improving relationships between law enforcement agencies and the community. This is a $20 million grant total. I mean, this allows all agencies across the country now to apply for this grant, and it's basically community relations. This also includes tribal law enforcement, so I want to put that in there too. One thing I forgot to mention in this bill, this also is for the tribal law enforcement officers across the nation as well, which I think is really, really big.
Yeah, this legislation, as I said, is a very large piece of legislation, and hopefully we can get it through the House. I'm not saying we're going to get it this year, because you've said before, there are 14,000 pieces of legislation that have to pass before the end of the year. Is that before we go to a new Congress?
Yeah.
And we're just hoping that at least some of our legislation that's being pushed gets through. But this is a very important piece of legislation, and I know that you're going to continue on the Hill pushing this particular piece and the Leo's Act also. So if we could get one of these two passed, it would be very important. And Bert is up on the Hill twice a week, and he is just walking like crazy. He's going to 7, 8, or 9 offices on twice a week, and that's a lot of work. But we are continually pushing this legislation.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. What I would like to conclude about this bill and why it's so important. It's a very, in-depth bill. And what we're trying to do today is just kind of break it down into a little bit of a bullet points. There's more to the bill that is going on. But the key is this bill is not just for law enforcement. This is for the community, making the community safer. It's not just dealing with law enforcement. Like we said, it's dealing with fire and rescue, your ambulance squad, your rescue squad, includes volunteer firefighters. It includes the National Guard, pretty much your whole judicial system, from judges all the way down to your correctional officers. So this is to incorporate safety for the community and for everybody else that is protecting the community. And to top it off, you have a grant to tie it all together to say, hey, let's make the community safer by passing this piece of legislation, which, what we have is on the House side, this bill was introduced by a bipartisan, which was Congressman Bacon and Congressman Golden. And you had a Republican and Democrat introducing this bill. On the Senate side, we have 38 senators that have co-sponsored this bill. So moving forward, I think we have a good chance to get it passed. And we're going to do our best, Jim. We're going to start heading back up there. The break is almost over in August, and we're going to start pushing these bills, and we're hoping that we'll get a lot on there. So I am Bert Eyler. I'm with my co-host, Jim Fotis. This is the PODC Hill Report, where we bring the Hill to you. Till next time, God bless.
God bless, and God bless America.